Howdy, folks. Anybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, Happy New Year and welcome back. Yes, we might as well go ahead and get started. Let's see, not a lot of new development since our last meeting, since I've mostly been gone. I think the last day I was in was our previous meeting, so the answer is how much new development has gotten done is probably not a whole lot. I have been looking into an issue with animations. It's sometimes if an object is animated and you appear in a region after the animation gets started, you don't always get notified. It looks like this is some kind of a timing issue where you get told about the animation before you've been told that the object exists, or at least before you've gotten around to making the object in the viewer, and so then you say, hey, I've got a message about some animation for some object I've never heard of. I think I'll ignore it. So that doesn't work too well. So should be able to fix that, but that's the latest fun thing. Let's see. Other than that, I don't know. It's basically open discussion, I guess. Anybody get a chance to work on any new stuff over the holidays, or have any new questions? I like the tree. Is it Animesh or just a tree? Oh, nice. Yeah, so the transparent texture issue with the shadows, Aki, is there a difference between how that gets handled for Animesh objects and how it gets handled for attachments? If you had that tree as your avatar, would it show the same kind of shadows, or would it work better?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is an issue with stuff we just don't handle for rigged mesh in general, or if it's specifically an issue with Animesh.
I'm assuming the Wyvern is going to be Animesh too, right?
Okay. If that's a general problem with rigged mesh transparency, then it's probably out of scope for Animesh. We'd really have to get a, graphics person on that. Yeah, but we would want to keep track of that. Be a good thing to get fixed. Yeah, certainly you'd want it to be handling that a little better. So the problem basically is that it's ignoring transparency for purposes of shadow calculations. Yeah. So what does get its shadow calculated correctly? Just static meshes with transparency? Okay. All right. Well, that's definitely a good find, and we'll do a little more digging on that and see if we can find what's going on. But if it's sort of a deep graphics pipeline issue, it may need to be addressed outside of Animesh itself. Yeah. Okay, so with your Wyvern, it's rigged mesh, but it's attached to your avatar, right? It's not an animated mesh. And you're seeing the same kinds of shadow issues there. Yeah, I guess that's the question. Is this just a limitation of our rigged mesh rendering in general, or is it something that's was introduced with this viewer? I don't know of any changes that would be causing the shadows to break, but it would it's always possible something crept in there. Yeah, and the Avatar shadows and Animesh shadows, I think, are basically going through the same code path. The Animesh objects are pretty much treated the same as avatars inside the system. We've got, well, they've got a skeleton which is contained in a special type of avatar called a control avatar, and so for the most part they get treated about the same. Occasionally there's a discrepancy, but I'd say 90+% it should pretty much work the same way. The avatar shadows have a separate graphics setting. If there's a separate graphics setting for it, it probably applies to Animesh too, but I haven't specifically looked at that. I don't know what the setting is. But do you happen to know? Beck, where's the setting you're looking for with avatar shadows? Is this in the graphics preferences? Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at the preferences now on the SL viewer. There's shadows where you can specify what you try to make shadows of, like sun and moon or sun and moon and projectors. Uh, but it doesn't. I don't see a separate setting for avatar shadows. As you say, it may just be that the language is different. That we're actually talking about the same thing in different viewers. Okay, well, if it's a Firestorm only feature, then I can't tell you. We have a question about is Animesh getting resizing support? But for which thing? We talked about we talked about possibly trying to support sort of global scaling to fit the object. Is that what you mean? Select and rescale the entire object. Yeah, currently we're trying to work through the kind of must fix bugs for getting out to release. I don't think that that is in the, things we absolutely have to get done list. So, the likelihood is that the initial Animesh release wouldn't have a scaling feature, but I certainly wouldn't rule out the possibility that we would do it at some point. Yeah, I did a little bit of experimentation with scaling. It looks like if you want to get the effect of scaling a rigged object globally, you actually have to go in and scale each joint in the hierarchy separately. So it's theoretically possible to do that. I did a little bit of experimentation with it, but it's not. I'm not sure that it interacts correctly with all the other features. We don't have a ton of data on it right now, and if it's not a top must do, then it's probably not going to get a lot of additional investigation, right away. Lucia asked about positioning and rotating rigged mesh attachments. I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, you can reposition attachments, right? I thought that worked. If you have a rigged mesh attachment and you right click on it and say edit, I thought you could change the rotation and the translation on that. Probably not scaling since that's not supported for attachments in general, I don't think. You can move the node, but the verts are recorded to set distance from the avatar bone. I'll take a look at it. I thought you could. I thought you could globally move the whole thing. I mean, basically, you're changing the position of the root joint so that that gets updated, but then but it doesn't do more detailed change of the whole thing. Yeah, I meant mesh attachments. Are we talking about something else? Oh yeah, standard avatar attachments. Yeah, no, you can't. I I I mean, I think basically it's moving things relative to the attachment point. So the difference with an avatar rigged attachment versus an Animesh attachment is that the Animesh attachment actually is getting positioned relative to an attachment point. So I think if you right click edit it, you actually can shift it around and basically by changing its transformation relative to the attachment point. Yeah, Animesh does not currently have sliders. That's one of the things we talked about as a possible follow-on project. Would be adding support for things like shapes, which define your slider positions.
Has that been tested at all?
What the business of supporting shapes?
Yeah.
No, no. This is just something that we may do in the future. It's definitely not part of the initial Animesh first pass release. Yeah, I mean, basically the hooks you have available now are either defining joint positions for your model or changing it with animations. Yeah, no, it'd be a good thing to have. That's another one of those things that requires a baking service update. You'd have to actually get the baking service to know about animated objects and look in their inventory to calculate their slider values and so forth. So it's probably the sort of thing that would be going out after Bakes on Mesh, which is currently in progress.
Yeah, and I've said this before that even with an avatar, it already has all these animations that are playing, but with Bento Bones, we don't. But Animesh makes it even worse because now we don't even have shapes to set those bones. So now you kind of have to control everything with Animesh. At least with animation.
You basically wind up needing more animations to customize things.
Well, you have to include all those bones to make sure they're set in place.
Yeah. Hey Beck, I think it's fine to ask now if it doesn't get into too complicated discussion. If it's something hairier, you may want to IM me later. Beck, I think the underscore support the way we have it implemented now basically does the same thing as the existing Firestorm support. So I think you could basically take one change or the other. If you have both, it's probably harmless, but it's not necessary. Yeah, the I think the joint alias map gets created and then passed into the various kind of loader objects. So anything that's in there should be looked at correctly uh, by the DAE at the time that you're uploading it. I think what you have in Firestorm is just a bunch of places where it says foo underscore bar is an alias for foo bar, and so there's just like a line for each of those. So I think if you wanted to take our change, you could just remove all those lines. For the more keys to the hash map, I doubt that it matters because I mean this you're only looking at that stuff at the time you're uploading the mesh anyway, right? Um, so I don't think that that stuff is going to have a runtime impact after stuff has been uploaded. Yeah, I don't know. I think the joint alias map is just used at upload time. Um, There are some aliases that maybe get looked at other times, but it's not actually a per joint alias like hip for pelvis or whatever. I think that stuff only gets used by the uploader. Yeah, I think the only functional difference with the way I put it in is that if we add more collision volumes in the future, it'll sort of automatically pick those up. But performance-wise, I think it should all come out about the same. Valentine's Day, huh? I hadn't heard that one. Yeah, I don't know. Those developers better get busy if they're going to get it up by then.
How many
No, other
bugs
stuff is
are
on
there?
topic. The sort of purpose of the meeting really is to talk about topics related to content creation in general. We started this meeting when we were doing the Bento project, and we're wound up mostly talking about skeleton updates at that point. But again, it's other stuff is certainly on topic. So yeah, fire away.
how many bugs are we waiting on here?
That's sort of what we've been deciding today.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the current count, but it's not super meaningful because some of it's, some of it's little things and some of it's big things like figure out what the limits are going to be. Our total must-dos right now is what, 14?
Yeah, I count 14.
Yeah.
One of them I'm still trying to wait.
I guess I can wait because Carrie's got a list of like hundreds of animations for me to do.
Got enough to keep you busy for now, huh?
For now, until we start seeing limits.
So have you guys started to get some experience with the whole kind of accessorizing question? I know there was a lot of discussion around, is there an acceptable way to do that in LSL, and maybe there was something that was going to work and so forth, but I didn't know how far anybody had gotten with actually playing around with that.
As far as I know, they say they have a solution. I'm not, you know, privy to the technical side of what's going to happen there, but it,
Okay.
of course, we don't know what our limits are, but the way we're looking at everything, the way our models are, um, I mean, we feel like we can do quite a bit, even with 50K.
Can I quote you on that?
No, because Carrie's not here.
Okay. Sorry, I think we've kind of run ahead of one of the questions that was posted earlier about getting link set object names recognized in upload. Um, so is or getting link set object names recognized? What? So where? Give me the context on that. Where do you run into problems with names not getting recognized? Root node inherits its file scene name. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we had a clear definition of what a better behavior would be, it would probably be a small change to make. So yeah, if someone wants to file a JIRA about that, explaining, exactly where the name should be coming from, we could take a look at that. Oh, okay, so the root object does get a name, but it's the sub objects in the link set don't get names assigned. Is that the problem? Okay. Okay. Well, if someone wants to either file a JIRA or give me a pointer to it, I can take a look. It's obviously that's not part of Animesh as such. It would probably get handled as a main thing instead, but we could certainly consider it. Oh, okay. So Polysale is saying that this is an issue because you can have you don't necessarily have a one-to-one correspondence between objects in the original scene description and objects as they get imported. So I guess if that's the case, then the best we could do would be to sort of make up new names that were, foo.1 and foo.2 or something like that, right? Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. No, I was just saying that. What was I saying? Polysale was saying that the naming doesn't necessarily match up, right? You can have one object in the DAE that corresponds to multiple prims as it actually gets uploaded. So you couldn't just use that name, but you could automatically generate some name, starting with that name. So dog part two or whatever. Yeah. Well, yeah, I would definitely encourage people to file a JIRA for that, if or just point me at the one that's already there, and we could certainly consider it. Rewriting the whole uploader, maybe not so much. I don't blame you for thinking that, but don't hold your breath either.
While you're rewriting the uploader, can you make the window scalable too?
Oh, sure, why not? Sorry, which window scalable? You mean the uploader window? Yeah. Yeah, that thing doesn't really want to be rescaled either, as I recall.
If you guys need something else to tackle too, I would love to have that drop work on Mesh. because every time we go through this sequence of how the animal's gonna be in your arms and then back on the ground, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I know that's kind of a hassle. We don't have a good code path for figuring out all of the appropriate bookkeeping to let you kind of turn an attachment into an in-world object. Alexa, I don't know if you've been involved in previous discussions about this, but if not, we should probably chat about it at some point.
I'm sorry, repeat the beginning part. I was trying to dig through Jira's.
Uh, yeah,
Right.
the issue right now is that if you have an attachment, you can't a rigged mesh attachment. You can't drop it. You can't say, I don't want this thing to be attached to me anymore. I want to just dump
Oh,
it
what
in
you do
world.
with what you do with
And
pets, etc. Is you
yeah,
they're
so right now you have to like
running around on
detach
the ground
it
now.
and then res it from inventory. Um,
Mm.
and the problem is this is one of those sort of long-standing things that we don't currently have a way to do. It was something that we uh, you know deliberately didn't include in the original mesh project, and so it's a kind of an unknown scope thing to tackle it on the server side.
Well,
Yeah, I
and
would like to
I'll
talk about that.
well I'll say too that some of the reasons why some of these like pet makers or that kind of thing, they still stick to Sculpties is because they can drop them. So and now we're replacing a
Right.
product that we could drop before, but now we can't drop. So and like I said,
Right.
it's just not a smooth uh, way to do it, anyways. But so I mean, if it could be addressed, it would make my year really.
I think that is a really I think that is a really valid discussion to have, because one of the great draws is being able to have these pets, is being able to have your creatures that you have wandering through your house, through your yard, and being able to right click and wear, and then drop it back into your living room so it continues on its own way. And yeah, this is something I'm going to Vera and I will talk about.
And there's also issues, if you detach it and it goes back in your inventory, people lose stuff that way. Now they don't even, now it's in their object folder, and now we can even set folders to put things in, so who knows where it would go now. So it could get pretty,
Yeah, no,
and I
it's
know they
definitely a hassle to
complain
have
about it
to
too.
dig it up that way. Yeah, I suppose that could go either way. Dropping things in world could lose them too if they're no copy.
Not that I want to set Animesh back at all, believe me.
Yeah, well, it would simplify the discussions if adding more features didn't also add more time. There's a question a little ways back about whether we were planning to have additional sliders for the new bento bones. Yeah, that was something we decided not to tackle during the initial bento project. It's certainly possible that we would add more sliders someday, but we don't have anything on the roadmap for it right now.
Is there any way that you could allow scale on just the bento bones? Or the new bento bones, I should say?
In what context? You mean to add like LSL support for scaling them, or to add support for scaling them in animations, or?
Yeah, scaling them with animation, because if we had that feature, then we could just scale, the wings up simply by scaling up the root of the wing bone.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, that's something that's not supported by the current animation format, so we'd actually have to, extend it. I think that was one of the things we talked about for Bento, but didn't make the cut.
That's what's kind of neat about having those root bones too, because let's say you had if we were allowed to scale with animation, you could scale like the hind root and scale up your whole hind legs, and the same thing with the tail. If you scaled the first bone on the tail, that would scale the whole tail.
Right. I think the way our scaling support works is it only scales the immediate children rather than scaling like all of the descendants. So, because I ran into this when I was trying to figure out a way to scale like the whole skeleton uniformly. I had to actually go in and set the scale for every joint in the hierarchy rather than just doing it once for the pelvis or whatever.
Ah, so
Right.
scale
Yeah.
doesn't carry
Correct.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some quirks to maybe just a few quirks to the way our joint system works.
Yeah, in the Avatar Lad, if you're going to scale up, uh, like say the tail, you have to scale up all the bones in the tail. If you want to scale the whole tail, you just can't scale up the root.
I mean, if you could do that in an animation, you could still write an animation that scaled, all of those things. But it's not something that we could, just drop in quickly because it would be a change to the format. Yeah, originally animations really, uh, were basically just did rotations. And the advantage of that is that everything kind of scales automatically, right? You rotate the joints for a big object or a small object, and everything just kind of works. If you start mixing in translations and scales, then things can combine in kind of weird ways.
Any updates on baked mesh?
I do not know what's going on with Baked Mesh right now. I haven't talked to Anchor since I got back from vacation, but I should have an update next meeting. Maybe I can drag him to the meeting if he has time. Eep, good question. Is Ryder here?
He
Nope,
is not,
no Ryder.
and he is not, and I have a meeting with him and Oz next Wednesday to discuss where we are. So hopefully we'll have some updates soon.
Yep, we need an Eep date. Separate cameras for water reflection and mirrors. So you're talking about having some kind of mechanism for supporting more reflections using cameras? Yeah, we're afraid of mirrors. I think it's all the vampires in world.
Maybe we could do mirrors with Animesh. You know? Have a mirror of your avatar.
How could that go wrong?
I like that solution. Yeah, keeping your animation synchronized would be a problem. Oh, okay, Lucia. I saw there was a Jira about lagging camera movement, but I haven't had a chance to take a look at it yet. Do you know how that one's different? Are there more pieces or something like that? Okay, Alexa, bye. Yeah, I think we're about at time anyway, so we could probably wrap it up for this week. Yeah, Lucy, I'll take a look at that one. I haven't had a chance to yet. If you could give me a copy of that, that would help. It would be easier to investigate. Oh, you can't? Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, if I know where to look, I can snag it. All right. Well, I think we are on for next week, but I need to update the schedule in the wiki, so I will do that probably tomorrow, and then go according to whatever that one says.
Next project, Marvel's Designer in Second Life, right?
Oh yeah, I hear that's doing cool things in Sansar. Have you had a chance to play with it in Sansar Land?
Well, I play with it. I've dealt with a lot of MD stuff, but I don't use
Yeah.
MD. But it's pretty cool.
Can we replace our avatars in Sansar?
Sorry, I was getting some chop on the voice there. I didn't hear exactly what you said.
Oh,
Place your avatars
well,
in Sansar. I don't know any details about what Sansar enables these days. I'd seen one demo in a company meeting that was showing off the Marvelous Designer stuff, but for the most part, I'm working on SL stuff all the time.
well, I think technically you can. You can put something over top of your avatar and actually like a thin skin right over top, but your avatar is technically still there. Even though Sansar supposedly does this really cool thing where it deletes parts of your body that aren't seen. So, yes and no.
I'm pretty sure it does more than it did in August anyway. All right. Well, see you next week. Have a good one.
Bye, Vera. Thanks.
Thanks, Fear. Bye.